Let's step into the old kitchen and discover these forgotten dishes, and who knows, they might just save your grocery bill this year. 1 skillet tomato crumble. In the 1930s, when the Great Depression cast a shadow over every family. From an old cookbook found in a church basement, this recipe emerged as a ray of hope. It was so quick people thought it was a snack, but for families struggling with hunger, it was dinner. The method was incredibly simple. A hot cast iron skillet, a can of stewed tomatoes, and a handful of crumbled saltine crackers. The tomatoes were poured into the sizzling skillet with lard or bacon grease, stirred until bubbling, then sprinkled with cracker crumbs. No cheese, no herbs, nothing fancy, just hot, salty, and crunchy. The mother just had to stand there, stirring the pan, and by the time the kids washed their hands, dinner was ready. This simple dish nourished hungry mouths by making something out of nothing, making 5 minutes a miracle. Railroad bean mash. There was a 5-minute recipe even quicker, and it was born right on a moving train. This railroad bean mash wasn't written in any cookbook. It was passed by word of mouth from one train car to another in the 1920s and 30s. Wanderers, porters, and transient workers all knew it by different names. Bean mash, hobo spread, freight car lunch. But the recipe was always the same. You needed a can of beans, a piece of dry, hard bread, and any seasonings you could scavenge or trade for. The beans were heated right in the can, over a lantern, a stove, or sometimes just a burning piece of newspaper. When the beans were warm, you used the back of a spoon to mash the old bread into them, stirred frantically and added salt, pepper, or if lucky, a packet of mustard. Emergency egg, hash up. By 1942, World War II made everything scarce. Meat was rationed, gasoline was tight, and no one had time to peel potatoes for breakfast. From the back page of a wartime home economics guide, emergency egg hash was born. You just needed old bread, torn into pieces instead of sliced, put into a greased skillet with any scraps you had left. Maybe a spoonful of onion, a bit of bacon grease, or if you were lucky, a diced piece of pickle. When the bread was golden and crispy, crack a few eggs in and stir frantically for just 90 seconds. Not pretty, no need to flip the eggs. It wasn't beautiful, but it was fast, hot, and surprisingly delicious. Some people even added a splash of vinegar to cut the richness of the grease, or pickle juice for a deeper flavor. Students back then called this pan scramble and always rushed home, hoping their mother hadn't run out of eggs. Brown sugar apple rings. As soon as the milk gravy bowl was clean, some mothers turned back to the hot skillet and created a dessert from almost nothing. A thinly sliced apple cut into rings, skin on, was placed in a bit of butter or bacon grease. A thin layer of brown sugar, maybe a dash of cinnamon, and a tiny splash of vinegar to wake up the flavors. Just 2 minutes per side, and the sugar would turn glossy like glass. The apples softened and the whole kitchen would fill with a smell like fairground pie. These apple rings were often piled on leftover rice or drizzled with a ring of milk gravy around the edges, so the sauce would run and sweeten every bite. It wasn't fancy, but it felt like a small feast after a long, tired day. You didn't even need plates. A communal bowl and warm spoons were enough. On winter evenings, those apple rings could change the atmosphere in the house. Whispered milk gravy. This recipe was so secret only the women of the family knew it, and they could make it even blindfolded. You wouldn't find this in magazines or most cookbooks. It lived in memory, quietly passed between mother and daughter, sometimes scrawled on the back of a Bible or a flour sack. People just called it milk gravy. But it was more than that. It started with a frugal bit of grease in the hot skillet, bacon grease if you had it, lard if you didn't. Then, a spoonful of flour was stirred quickly until golden. Finally, milk was added little by little until it thickened into a smooth, creamy consistency. No measurements, no timeline, just instinct. Some added a bit of pepper, others a splash of coffee or vinegar to cut the richness. This gravy was poured over boiled potatoes, leftover biscuits, even canned greens when meat was scarce. What childhood dish made you feel a similar sense of magic? Share your story in the comments. Cornbread in milk bowl. And when the skillet was empty and the stove still warm, the next comforting 5-minute dish awaited in a bowl. Old cornbread crumbled into hot milk until it became soft as a hug. This was the quiet of the evening. After clearing the dishes and the fire had died down, someone would seek out leftover cornbread. A dry, hard piece, a broken edge, or a purposefully saved piece, and crumble it into a warm bowl. Hot milk was slowly poured over, just enough to soften but not drown the bread. A pinch of salt, a spoonful of sugar, or a touch of molasses. In 5 minutes, you had a dish that wasn't quite soup and not quite cake, but filled the belly like both. It wasn't made for guests or special occasions. It was made for the tired, the quiet, and those whose work was done. The kind of dish that didn't need much talk. Mothers fed it to children who skipped dinner. It wasn't just easy to make, it was kind. In some families, this was the bedtime ritual. You would see the flickering light, hear the gentle clink of a spoon against a ceramic bowl, and know someone was relaxing. Dandelion greens, fry up. When apples were gone and the garden went to sleep for winter, people turned to finding what grew for free. You'd cut a full bowl from the front yard before the flowers bloomed, wash off the dirt, and toss the leaves into a hot skillet with a spoonful of bacon grease. They would wilt very quickly. A bit of salt, a touch of pepper, maybe a splash of vinegar to temper the bitterness. Just 2 to 3 minutes and it was done. Bitter, bright, and strong enough to eat alone, or piled on potatoes for a full plate. People joked it tasted like hard times, but they kept eating it even when wages were better. Grandmothers said these greens helped wake up the blood. Farmers said it helped a man keep his feet steady. Kids learned to judge the skillet's heat by the sheen of the leaves. Too dull meant overcooked. Too wet meant not hot enough. The skillet told the truth, and so did the first bite. Harmony. Quick fry, hominy. When the dandelions had withered and the yard was quiet, the skillet didn't rest. It turned to a pantry staple with a funny name and a quick temper. Hominy was the unsung hero of scarce nights. You'd drain the can, pat it dry so it wouldn't splatter, then toss the hominy into a hot skillet with a spoonful of bacon grease or butter. They would blister and puff in a couple of minutes. Crispy on the outside, soft on the inside, a dash of salt and black pepper, maybe a bit of chili or paprika, and you had a filling bowl that ate like a main course. First was the soft hiss, then the sharp pop, like gravel under a truck tire. Kids would gather around the stove to watch the hominy dance, and someone always got splattered on the wrist and broke into laughter. The smell shifted to nutty and warm, a little smoky if you had scraped the bacon grease tin clean. Flash, succotash, skillet. Saturday kitchens were always bustling when this dish appeared. And when the skillet was still sizzling, America's fastest two-can meal appeared. Corn and lima beans married in one hot, bright minute. This was the fastest hot meal a tired cook could make. 1 can of corn, 1 can of lima beans, both quickly drained. Straight into the smoking skillet with a spoonful of bacon grease or butter. Stir vigorously for 1 minute. Add a pinch of salt and black pepper, maybe a bit of minced onion if available. The corn would be sweet and fragrant, the lima beans soft and creamy. Just 2 to 3 minutes and the whole skillet would be gleaming. The sound was a soft scrape and a sizzle, the smell sweet and fresh. If the skillet was hot enough, the corn kernels would pop like tiny firecrackers. Leftover potato skillet. When the plates were clean and the skillet still hot, most cooks didn't slow down. They turned to the simplest trick, browning leftover potatoes. Nothing was more useful than yesterday's potatoes. You'd slice cold, cooked potatoes thinly, or dice them. Put them into a hot skillet with a spoonful of bacon grease and leave them alone to crisp on one side. No stirring at first. That crust was the reward. A bit of onion if you had it, a pinch of salt and pepper, maybe a dash of paprika. Just 2 to 3 minutes per side and the edges would be crispy, the inside still soft, and the whole kitchen would fill with a morning smell even if it was almost evening. Every home had its own potato rules. Some swore by flattening a few pieces with a spatula to create more crispy bits. Others added a spoonful of pickle juice at the end to wake up the whole pan. The brave ones slid the skillet under the broiler for a minute when the oven was hot. Kids would fight over the darkest corner piece of potato. The elderly preferred the soft middle. You could hear dinner in the sounds. A soft sizzle, the scrape of metal on cast iron, a little cheer when a piece of potato flipped perfectly round. In your family, is there a special dish? Not fancy, but always bringing a sense of warmth, like a ritual after a long day? Crackling egg scramble. But not all 5-minute meals were so quiet. Some were loud and greasy like the old farm favorite of cracklins and eggs, waking up the whole house in a sizzle. This was not a silent dish. It cracked, popped, and sizzled the moment it hit the pan. Cracklin' egg. Scramble was born from scraps. Crispy bits left over after rendering lard or extra bacon pieces saved in a tin next to the stove. You'd drop a handful of cracklins into a hot skillet until they sang. Then crack 2 or 3 eggs in and scramble them lightning fast. No cheese, no milk, no fuss, just grease, salt, and fire. It took only a minute or two before the eggs set and the cracklins curled, creating a chewy, sticky-to-your-teeth dish that stuck in memory. Fried bologna rounds. This was the 5-minute king of lunch, sometimes breakfast, dinner, or whenever you needed it. You'd take a thick slice of bologna, notch the edges so it wouldn't curl too much, and lay it in a dry, hot skillet. No oil needed. The meat rendered its own fat. It hissed loud, puffed up like a small dome, and browned in patches that looked like burnt gold. Flip it once, maybe twice, and it was done before the coffee brewed. It was fast, hot, and smelled like Saturday mornings in a loud house. Sometimes a slice of tomato or a leftover biscuit joined it on the plate. But even plain, it was a meal that made you feel full and cared for. Creamed salmon skillet. The next cooking trick needed no meat at all. Just a dusty can of salmon, a little milk, and 5 minutes of simmering. This dish went straight from the pantry to the table quickly. You'd open a can of salmon, bones and skin included, quickly drain it, then mash it into a hot skillet with a spoonful of butter or saved bacon grease. Stir just enough to heat through. Then pour in a splash of milk or cream, a pinch of salt, a bit of pepper, and maybe a dash of onion powder if you had it. Simmer for a minute or two until it thickened slightly. Then serve it with boiled potatoes, old toast, or any available starch. It wasn't fancy and certainly not pretty, but it filled the plate and quieted the house. The fish was silken. The milk had just enough salty tang and the skillet smelled like there was still something good left. Fried green tomatoes. The skillet cracked and hissed as the cornmeal crusted, each slice a little different, but all tasting of home. This was a sharp and bright dish. Sliced tomatoes coated in cornmeal, then fried hot until the edges crackled like summer. This dish cracked like a summer screen door. You'd take firm, green tomatoes, slice them thickly, not too ripe, and roll them quickly in cornmeal, sometimes mixed with a little flour or salt. The trick was not to soak them. No egg dip needed, no fuss, just slice, coat, and into the hot skillet, they sizzled loudly as they hit the grease. You'd fry them for about 2 minutes per side until the edges were golden brown and the middle soft, but still holding its shape. They came out with a golden, crispy crust on the outside, tangy and juicy on the inside. Onion and apple skillet. If the tomato slices were gone and the oil still shimmered in the skillet, the next recipe delivered sweet and savory at once with just 2 ingredients: apples and onions. You'd slice a tart apple and a yellow onion thinly, both cut fast and thin, then toss them into a hot skillet with butter or bacon grease. The onions went in first to soften a bit, then the apples, absorbing all the sizzle. A pinch of salt, maybe a dash of brown sugar or a splash of vinegar depending on the mood, and that was it. The apples softened, the onions browned, and the smell deepened in the skillet. People poured it over pork chops, scooped it onto cornbread, or just ate it with a fork straight from the pan. The flavors danced between bright and savory, and if you did it right, both melted into something that tasted better than either on its own. In your memory, is there a dish that would surprise others by its name, but holds special meaning in your family? Corn oysters. 4 ingredients, 5 minutes, and a lot of happy mouths with corn as the main ingredient. A spoonful of golden crisp they called corn oysters, fried fast and gone even faster. Don't let the name fool you. There wasn't a drop of seafood in them. Corn oysters got their name because they looked like fried oysters, but they came straight from the cornfield and the back of an old Grange cookbook. You'd take fresh or canned corn, quickly mix it with a beaten egg, a spoonful of flour, maybe a bit of milk, and season with salt and pepper. Then, you'd drop spoonfuls of the batter into hot grease and fry until the edges curled and the middle puffed just right. Warm cottage cheese with cream and pepper. Gently warmed cottage cheese until it was soft and savory in the skillet. This was one of those old dishes that made modern people raise an eyebrow until they tasted it. It wasn't cooked through or melted, just gently warmed in a skillet or pot with a splash of cream or whole milk. The curds loosened, the cream thickened, and with a pinch of salt and a generous grind of black pepper, it transformed into something smooth, rich, and quietly comforting. No flour, no butter, just warmth and fat doing their work. This dish took less than 5 minutes from cold to ready, and it was served simply, scooped into a shallow bowl, perhaps with a biscuit or a few saltine crackers. The kind of dish that appeared for the sick, the tired, or the worn out, and reminded them they were still worth nourishing. Maple snow. The next dish, it didn't sizzle, it froze. Sweet snow in a bowl drizzled with maple syrup and cream, vanishing in seconds like childhood itself. This dish only appeared when the world was white and quiet. Kids would run outside with metal bowls or tin trays, scooping the freshest snow they could find. Clean, fluffy, and cold enough to bite. Inside, a mother or grandmother would pour warm maple syrup over it, slowly and evenly, watching it freeze into golden ribbons. Sometimes they added a little cream, sometimes a pinch of salt, but most times they let the syrup speak for itself. The snow compressed softly under the warmth, turning into a sticky sweet concoction that melted on the tongue like candy from the clouds. Families huddled together, passing bowls with sticky fingers and rosy cheeks still numb from the wind. Molasses kettle popcorn. Popcorn mixed with warm molasses straight from the kettle. You'd pop a regular batch of corn on the stovetop, not in a bag, then put it into a large metal bowl. Meanwhile, on the back burner, you'd warm a spoonful of molasses with a bit of butter until it loosened and began to bubble. Then came the pour. Hot molasses was drizzled evenly over the popcorn and quickly stirred, coating each kernel with a sticky sweetness and a deep, smoky flavor no store-bought caramel corn could match. It wasn't crunchy like kettle corn or soft like candy. It was chewy, a little crisp, and rich with old-time flavor. You didn't eat it quietly either. Every bite snapped, popped, and tugged. Sometimes your teeth stuck. Sometimes your fingers did too, but no one cared. It was messy, fast, and so delicious that it never lasted more than 5 minutes after being served. The smell of warm molasses and roasted corn filled the house, drifting down hallways and seeping into closets where kids hid handfuls of popcorn and napkins for sneaking into bed. Quick liver sear with onions. This was the kind of dinner that didn't ask if you liked it. It asked if you were hungry. Thin, paper-thin slices of calf or chicken liver, dusted with a bit of flour and salt, were dropped into a hot, smoking skillet and seared quickly. 1 minute per side, maybe less. Then sliced onions went into the pan, stirred just enough to soften and absorb the grease. Some ate it with mashed potatoes. Others piled it between biscuits with mustard or vinegar to cut the richness. And if the liver was fresh and the skillet honest, it was tender, not tough. More like a wild cousin of steak than anything you'd find in the supermarket freezer. In the South, it was known as workers' fuel. Factory wives fried it at dawn for their men heading out before sunrise. Hot dogs and onions fry up. This was a 5-minute savior when the fridge was almost empty, but mouths still asked, "What's for dinner?" Thick slices of hot dogs, sometimes rounds, sometimes halved lengthwise, went into the skillet first, browning quickly and curling at the edges. Then came the onions, added along with the rendered hot dog fat. The two cooked together in a noisy, greasy dance until the onions were soft and sweet, and the hot dogs had a crispness that made them taste better than they had any right to. You didn't need buns, you didn't need side dishes. This was a full plate eaten with a fork, or by hand, straight from the skillet. Some added mustard, others stirred in a spoonful of canned beans or a dash of BBQ sauce if they felt daring. But even plain, it filled you up and kept you full. Buttermilk hoe cakes. With this dish, you'd mix cornmeal, a bit of buttermilk, a pinch of salt, and maybe a little baking soda if available. No eggs, no sugar, no fuss. The batter had to be loose but not runny, just thick enough to hold its shape when poured into a hot, greased skillet. It hit the pan with a hiss, spread into a round, and crisped at the edges like coins frying in oil. Flip it once, maybe twice, and it was done. The inside remained soft, the outside crunchy, and the whole hoe cake tasted of whatever grease you cooked it in. Bacon grease, butter, even lard from a coffee tin next to the stove. You'd eat it hot with a pat of butter, a drizzle of syrup, or simply with whatever you were having that night. It was a stretcher meal, a plate filler, and for some, the only bread they had all week. Cider sizzled sausage bites. In some families, it was the midnight snack after church socials. You didn't need a recipe, just a hot skillet, a steady hand, and enough cider. You'd slice smoked sausage thickly without hesitation and drop it into a hot pan. No oil needed. Once the edges were golden and curled, a splash of cider, maybe a spoonful of butter was added, and the whole pan came alive. The cider bubbled, sizzled, and clung to the sausage like a glaze, turning each bite glossy, sticky, and full of sweet, smoky flavor within 5 minutes. Then you could pile the sausage into biscuits, skewer them with toothpicks, or eat them straight from the pan while standing barefoot in the kitchen. Some added mustard, others sprinkled red pepper, but even plain, it hit all the right notes: sweet, savory, and just enough tang to make you reach for another bite. This dish appeared when unexpected guests arrived or when rain ruined dinner plans and no one felt like being fancy. The smell of apples and sausage lingering in the warm house could change a mood in a minute. Buttered peas from the can. Canned peas made quick with butter and pepper because even humble things deserve to shine. This dish was the simplest of meals, but when done right, it was pure comfort. You'd open a can of peas, drain them, and warm them in a skillet with a generous pat of butter and a grind of black pepper. No boiling, no seasoning packets, just heat, fat, and a little time. In just a couple of minutes, the peas would be glossy and tender, absorbing the butter until they tasted fresh again, even if they'd been on the pantry shelf for half a year. People served them with everything: roast meat, mashed potatoes, fried chicken, or just a slice of bread. If you had a little onion or leftover bacon grease, it went into the pan too. Skillet rice pudding? Yesterday's leftover rice. Maybe a spoonful of sugar, and 5 minutes later, a skillet pudding that brought the whole table back to life. This was the dessert made from scraps, and no one complained. You'd scoop some cold, cooked rice into a skillet with a splash of milk, a spoonful of sugar, and maybe a pinch of cinnamon or nutmeg if the spice jar still rattled. Stir over low heat until it thickened into something soft and creamy. Just soupy enough, just sweet enough to call a treat. In 5 minutes, you had a warm pudding that tasted like it took all day to cook. Some added raisins if they had them, or stirred in a pat of butter at the end to make it richer. Skillet rice pudding was often made with one hand holding a spoon and the other wiping the table. It cooked while dishes were washed, while stories were told, while babies slept in someone's lap. The smell of warm milk and cinnamon floated through the house like a lullaby. Quick apple cabbage fry. It wasn't quite a side dish and not quite a main, but it filled the plate and warmed the room. That was quick apple cabbage fry. You'd shred some green cabbage and thinly slice a tart apple. Skin on, no fuss. Then toss them into a hot skillet with a spoonful of butter or bacon grease. The apples softened just enough, and the whole dish shifted to sweet, tart, and savory all at once. A pinch of salt, maybe a splash of vinegar or a bit of caraway seed if you felt fancy, and it was done in 5 minutes. People served it with sausage, mashed potatoes, or scooped it into a bowl plain. It was crisp and soft, light yet filling, something you didn't think you'd like until you tasted it. This dish appeared when the garden had given its last bounty, when the cellar only held apples and onions and hope. The apple brought sweetness, the cabbage brought crunch, and together they turned humble into something that tasted like it belonged at a feast. Peanut butter cornmeal balls. Peanut butter, cornmeal, and molasses mashed into round balls that stuck to your ribs and kept hunger at bay. No stove, no oven, just a bowl, a spoon, and 2 rough hands. You'd mix a spoonful of peanut butter with dry cornmeal and a bit of molasses until the whole mixture stuck together like a rough dough. Then you'd roll it into small balls no bigger than a walnut and press them tight. That was it. No cooking, no chilling, no fancy tools. Just 3 ingredients and 5 minutes to make a snack that kept you going from dawn till dusk. They were dense, chewy, and rich, meant to stick to your ribs and settle your stomach for hours. Farmers packed them in shirt pockets. Kids ate them on the way to school, and soldiers carried them on long patrols. Corn and tomato skillet. Corn and tomatoes simmered into a 5-minute stew that filled the house with summer flavor. This was the best 5-minute stew of them all, straight from the pantry to the plate. You'd open a can of sweet corn and a can of stewed tomatoes. Drain just enough and dump both into a hot skillet with a bit of butter or bacon grease. Stir over medium heat until it started to bubble. Then add a pinch of salt and a grind of black pepper. That was all it needed. The corn kept its firmness and sweetness. The tomatoes melted into a rich, tangy sauce. And in just a few minutes, you had a dish that tasted like summer, even when it was snowing outside. People ate it plain or scooped it over rice, cornbread, or leftover potatoes. It was one of those in-between meals. Not quite a soup, not quite a side dish, but always warm, filling, and honest. The colors looked cheerful on the plate, and the smell could pull everyone into the kitchen before you even called them. Pan-browned canned potatoes. One last 5-minute miracle from the back of the pantry. Canned potatoes browned crisp in a skillet, firm and simply seasoned, because when all else failed, you could always rely on potatoes. The dish our grandparents used when all fresh food was gone, and the pantry held only quiet. You'd open a can of whole white potatoes, drain the brine, and pat them dry with any clean towel. Then into the hot skillet with bacon grease or butter, sizzling loud as they hit the pan. No stirring at first. You let them sit and brown crisp on one side. That crust was everything. Once the edges were crisp and the bottom golden, knowledge of identifying safe wild mushrooms was an extremely valuable intellectual asset, passed down through generations, sometimes meticulously recorded in handwritten notebooks with detailed drawings. If this video brought back a memory or simply made you hungry, don't stop here. Share it with your loved ones, hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe to Back to Yesterday to not miss out on the emotional historical stories to come. Thank you for watching until the very end. See you in the next video.